Okay, today we're looking at chapter 6 on page 65 of the Diamond Sutra, the Great Unfolding. 오늘 65쪽부터 시작합니다. This is a really interesting one because the chapter title doesn't exactly match up with the chapter contents. It must, but it doesn't jump out at me. So the chapter title is Your Root, Your Inherent Nature is the Source of True Faith. Right? Very simple, very straightforward, but it's like I said, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 words. And your root, your inherent nature is the source of true faith. Well, this question of where do we get energy from, right? Where do we get inspiration from? And this is what it's telling us. You know, the energy you want, the inspiration you want, in Korean or in Buddhism, you can say that true faith, you know, the motivation to keep going, right? The energy to go forward, the trust to apply, put into practice what I've learned. And, you know, Daehaeng Kunsen is saying right here, your root is where that comes from. Keep entrusting everything to your root. And that's where you can find that energy and that faith and that inspiration. So, I mean, ultimately, it can't not be on topic with the rest of the paragraph, with the rest of the chapter. But it is kind of, in American English, they call these things Easter eggs, like little hidden eggs with treasure inside that you didn't expect to see. And this is definitely one of them. Okay. Like I said, in a way, this translation of the Diamond Sutra is very easy to lecture about because every single chapter has something very special or very unique to it. And it may not seem completely obvious, but it's there and it's quite profound. One of the first, we'll go ahead and I'll read page 67. 67쪽부터 읽겠습니다. And we'll talk about this in a minute. So Subhuti asked the Buddha, World Honored One, will ordinary people be capable of understanding what you've been saying and then truly having faith in it? The Buddha replied, do not say such things, for even in the unimaginably distant future, there will be beings who cultivate the virtues grounded in this non-dual truth. If such beings work sincerely and wholeheartedly at applying these teachings, they will discover their root, their fundamental mind. And I'll just stop with this page for a minute here right now. There's okay, that's where the title comes from then. There's a unconscious bias that we have, that we are either better or worse than the people in the past, right? So if you look at somebody from 1,000 years ago, they were talking about, the end of ages, in Korean, malse, right? 1,000 years ago. In the Western society, it was the same thing. It's the end of days. You know, every generation complains about the young generation. Kids these days, their haircuts are terrible and they have no manners. You know, people said that 1,000 years ago. And it's always the same thing. But one of the things that Buddha is saying here is that people are the same in all times and places, right? Their physical environment, their toys, their tools, if you will change. But the people themselves are the same. And there may be some little differences here, but the fundamentals are still the same. And, so Buddha says right here that even in the unimaginably distant future, there will be beings who cultivate the virtues grounded in this non-dual truth, right? There'll be people who have an affinity for non-duality, right? The people who know, this is the way to go. This is what's right. I may be a caveman, I may be a spaceman, but something in me tells, oh no, this is right. This non-duality, getting past these daily life dualities of self versus other, good versus bad, high versus low, getting in touch with the whole that transcends that is the way I have to go. And so, there's always been people like that. There'll always be people like that. So, Subhuti kind of has this question of a little bit like, Subhuti's question comes from the fact that he got to study under the Buddha himself, right? And so, what happens in 50 or 100 years when the people don't have a chance to meet you and know you? Will they be able to understand this? When they don't have such a outstanding teacher, will they be able to follow this? And the Buddha's saying, don't even go there, right? Because people at that time, people this time, there'll still be people who have a sense of this non-duality. Is one of the things about even a great teacher, they're not necessarily giving you something, right? They're showing you ways that you can go forward, but you're the one who has to do the homework, right? You're the one who has to make the effort to put the teachings into practice and apply them. I think that the only people who pick up on spiritual teachings are people who've been working on it by themselves anyway, right? People have to have been thinking about something deeper. They have to have been looking for something deeper. Then if they meet a great teacher, they can apply those teachings to their own experiences. Like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong. In my own case, it was getting caught up in blaming other people, or you're kind of comparing, politicians or society or this stuff. They aren't doing a good job, and no matter how much you sit in meditation, if you're still caught up in that like and dislike and blaming other people, you won't make any practice. But I'd been struggling, and Sunim said, no, you have to stop blaming other people. I was like, oh, I feel so stupid, right? Because it's these little things that this is what a real teacher gives you. It's like they don't give you the whole package. They help you find that little piece you need to make the next step yourself. And this is what Daehaeng said any number of times, that basically, I don't do your practice for you. I just turn on the heat, right? I provide the snack. But the work, you have to do the work. Nobody else can do the work. I can't go to the bathroom for you. I can't take a nap for you. I can't eat for you. You're the one who has to do that. And so in the process of this, there's always been people, there'll always be people who pick up on a sense of this greater whole, this non-dual whole. And so whatever the time, whatever the era, no matter how bad the era seems, there's always people like that who want to know that. Okay, let's go on to the next page. And so Let's see, what do we got now? Pay attention. Inherently, every person has within them this eternal fundamental root. So too does every life, everything, and every Buddha. All have this wonderful root. Thus there will be beings who, after hearing these teachings, will go forward becoming one with everything they encounter, responding to it all through their own root. Subhuti, Tathagata is the state where everything functions as one, and so perceives and understands all things. Thus I can tell you that if people realize that my presence creates the world that is unfolding in front of me, they will attain truly endless virtue and merit. Okay. So the first paragraph, again, everybody, the Buddha saying, everybody has this root. Everybody has the same non-dual root. And it's not a matter of time. It's not a matter of region. Anywhere in the world, any time in the world, there's beings with this root. I mean, there's probably life forms on other planets. And some of them, they all have this root, and some of them will be trying to get in touch with that. And the second paragraph is an idea that it has one interesting thing. I think the first few lines in English where it says Tathagata is a state where everything functions as one, and so perceives and understands all things. I think it's establishing credentials, right? The Buddha is saying, as Tathagata, I can tell you that this whole is aware of everything that's going on. So when I tell you that, if you understand that my presence creates the world in front of me, when I tell you this, and I tell you that the virtue and merit of this is unimaginable, believe me, because I can perceive as Tathagata, I perceive and understand everything that's going on. So I'm not joking around when I say there's truly endless virtue and merit here. And this is, Daehaeng sometimes used an expression that translates, everything is my fault. Right? And in English that comes across wrong. That's like a literal translation of the Korean, 모든 게 내 탓. Right? In English that comes across a little bit wrong. It can be mistaken in English quite easily as a self-blame thing that gets a little strange. But the real idea is that the whole world, everything in my world is the interaction of myself and the world. And it all responds according to how I react. If I'm, as other people all have their own path, right? Other people all have their own trajectory. Easy to say. And they all have their own karma, all have their own history. But my reaction to them all changes according to how I give rise to thoughts. If you're in a bad mood and I'm in a bad mood and I react that way, then things are going to get worse, right? If you're in a bad mood and I don't react to that, I just entrust that, then maybe it's not a happy relationship, but at least it doesn't get worse. It doesn't create further problems. It'd be nice to have the happy, wonderful relationship, but at least things not getting worse is a nice option. And, this idea that if people understand this, that my presence creates the world in front of me, they will attain truly endless virtue and merit. That's a big statement, right? That if you just understand that your experience in the world, your existence in the world, is creating the world in front of you, truly understanding that, results in this endless virtue and merit, is kind of a huge idea. It's like, wow, what's going on here about this that is so apparently so powerful, And, that's something for you all to think about, right? Ask yourself these questions and just ask it inside. I expect that most of you probably come up with a pretty good idea about what some of the implications of that are. But, because it's kind of funny because it's 4 lines, it's 4 short lines in English. And yet, this one little thing, Einstein's theory of relativity is not this short. Right? Maybe his E equals MC2 formula is shorter, but it's it's pretty interesting. Okay, let's go on to the next page. All right, why is this? When people have no thoughts of I did, I gave, I'm better than, then they will likewise not be caught by ideas such as this is the path or that isn't the path. This is the truth or that isn't the truth. If any beings give rise to ideas of I, those will likewise lead to attachments to the world of discriminations. Even if someone is searching for the truth, if they give rise to thoughts of I'm doing, I am, and so on, then those thoughts will cause them to fall into attachments, to ideas of a separate self, of having obtained a certain level of evolution, of thinking others existing at lower states of development, or of thinking that they are constrained by time or space. Of course, pursuing things other than the truth will likewise cause someone to fall into such mistaken views. And then let's go on to the last page real quick. So don't get caught up in what is the truth or not, what is not the truth, what is the path or what is not the path, in what are the noble teachings or what are not the noble teachings. Just let go of both sides, including even your deep understanding of them, then the light will come on. How could it not? Thus, Tathagata is always saying, Bhikkhus, in all that I have taught there is no me, so how could there be some separate thing called truth? If there's not even truth, how could there be something that is not the truth? Okay, so we have the idea, this, if you truly understand that your existence creates the world in front of you, one of the implications of that is that you free yourself from thoughts of I did or I am. And the idea is that, or the sort of the reverse implication is that by giving into thoughts of I did, I am, this happened to me, we're creating something that causes us suffering, right? It's easy to think, oh, I did, I am. What's wrong with that, right? What's the harm in that? But the implication here is that leads to big problems. And I think it's also the fact that it exists at a very subtle level. Is even when you think you've let go of thoughts of I did, it gets really easy to look at somebody and unconsciously think, they're doing better than me, they're doing worse than me. And dividing them up, splitting them up, even though you aren't necessarily consciously thinking of that. So a lot of the work of spiritual practice is finding these subtle, unspoken discriminations and becoming aware that you're thinking like that. And just thinking, oh, I got to put a stop to this. I got to try to let go of this. And that's the whole idea behind the old Zen story of monks going up in the mountains and meditating for 3 years. And then in the English translation, they come back down the mountain to the market, right? To Shijang, they go back to the market. And, I think the market is a metaphor for the ordinary world, because that's where they discover any little attachments or desires or discriminations they didn't realize they had. So it's very easy to be at peace when you're sitting up in the mountain by yourself and everything's quiet. But then you walk in the market, you walk somewhere and people are yelling at you or get out of the way, and all this stuff. And it's like, this stuff pops up, and you're like, oh, gotta let go of that. Okay. So there are, the Diamond Sutra has some interesting phrasing. If you look at page 71, and you see it on 73 as well. 저 71쪽, 73쪽 보시면, so we translate it in the English as this is the path or that isn't the path. In Korean, it's 법이란 것도 없고 법 아는 것도 없다, right? That's on page 70, 70쪽에. And it sounds like something that junior monks argue about. It sounds like a little bit of like a low-level sort of argument. In the Christian Middle Ages, people would be arguing about theology, right? Was Jesus poor or was he not poor? And they were like killing each other over stuff like this. And these people think that Jesus was poor, and they literally kill people for stuff like that, or he wasn't poor, and I don't think that ever happened in Buddhism. But this kind of argument, oh, this is truth, this is not truth, and people getting really worked up about it. This is Buddha talking to Subhuti, right? So I think we're talking about a level of understanding that's well beyond this kind of arguing about right or wrong, or sort of this is the principle, this isn't the principle, kind of stuff that you see among the bhikkhu sunims, among monks. You might see that with very new monks, right? You don't see that with older monks. They're like, both of you shut up, right? But so I'm not sure exactly, honestly, I'm not sure what exactly the circumstances are. The Buddha is speaking to Subhuti, so he's implying there's something about, this is the truth or this isn't the truth. And it goes back, it reflects on the opening, on the very first poem we read, on the very opening of Daehaeng's version of the Diamond Sutra. If you take this path, everything is working together as one. If you take that path, everything is working together as one. And I wonder if it's a reflection on that idea, that if you think something is the path or not the path, you're accidentally trying to divide up this whole. And maybe with Subhuti, it's a question of how do I teach people? So if Subhuti wants to teach people, then at the ordinary level, there's people who need help, and you need to make an effort to do that. But at the very, very deep level, if Subhuti is seeing them as separate people who he has to go help, then he's still stuck in a level of dualism about the fundamental nature of things. And the Buddha may be trying to wake him up from that, trying to say, get past this idea that these people are separate from you, right? Oh, there's somebody over here that I have to help, and they're different from me, right? Is if I'm helping them, then if I'm able to give help and you're able to get help, then we're at different levels, we're at different places, right? We're different existences. I have a lot and you don't, and you have less. Knowledge, money, whatever. And so there's a fundamental idea there that we're separate, that our resources are different, we're disconnected. But if I understand that we're all part of the whole, then what I have is what you have. what you have is what I have. And you may still need, you may still have the urge to assist them. It's like, oh, right now you're thirsty, so I have a cup of water, here, have it. But somebody described, how does Avalokitesvara, or in Korean Kwanzaa Mbosar, how does Avalokitesvara help people who are suffering? And the answer was, like you adjust your pillow at night, right? In the middle of the night, how do you adjust your pillow? Oh, there's no thought about adjusting your pillow. You just, without even waking up, you take it and move it around to where it's more comfortable. It's the same thing with this non-dual helping, right? Oh, just here. There's no thought of me giving you something. There's no thought of you needing to get something. It was just, there's thirst over here, or there's hunger over here, and here's what I can offer. So I think that may be what this part's talking about. But with all of this stuff, just because I said it, don't believe it, right? Take it and trust it inwardly. Let it sink down within you and discover the reality of it for yourself. Because, it's like watching a film about weightlifting versus actually weightlifting yourself. Right? Watching a film about weightlifting is sort of, it can help you, but it's not the same thing. So, okay. And Daehaeng Sunim gives a couple examples of, these ideas of I did, I am. But there's more examples of this than you can think of, really. This is me, right? This body is me. This shape is me. That's another type of idea like that. I am this. This body is me. This happiness is me. This pain is me. She did this, right? So there's no I am. He did this. She did this. He's doing this. She's doing this. He's behaving badly. He's behaving well. He did this to the world, right? The really terrifying ones are, they aren't people. They aren't human beings, right? They're animals. These people, they aren't really people, right? They're not people like you and me. If you start hearing somebody talk like that, then run, right? That's like the first step to really ugly war crimes. Historically, every time there's like big massacres or mass murders, you always see something like this. They aren't really people. The Russians or the Ukrainians or the Jews or the Germans or the Chinese or Japanese, they aren't really people. So, if you kill them, they don't hurt as much as you or I do. Really crazy stuff like this, but it always comes back to this idea, they aren't like you and me. They aren't people. And historically, every place that thinks like that suffers in ways beyond imagining. So we always hear examples of like the war criminals who survived all the way to the end, and sometimes they escaped. But there's not very many people like that. The reality is that most of them died, right? Talking to people who were in Tibet, the Chinese, do you remember the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guard? So the Red Guard and the Chinese divisions invaded Tibet, and they massacred whole monasteries and towns, and then those units, like everybody in those units died. And then they brought in another army unit, and that army unit died. You know, in China, in Tibet, it was altitude sickness and disease and all kinds of stuff. And so by the end of the, after 10 or 15 years, you could say, oh, Chinese went in there and they killed everybody. And after 15 years, there were Chinese there. But the Chinese who were there at the end were not the ones at the beginning. Like all the ones at the beginning died. In the Cultural Revolution, even in the cities, where they, one group of Red Guards would attack a university or something, or, torture or kill intellectuals or whoever, and then they themselves would get attacked by another unit and by another. This is the same thing in Cambodia, where even unthinkably horrible level, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, they just like a group would, a military unit or wherever they were, would just massacre thousands of people. And they themselves would get killed by another group of the Khmer Rouge, and just over and over and over. And so we get this idea that, oh, these people did this and they continued up to the end. And the reality is not really like that. The people that did that, like I said, they all died. They all, who knows what happened to them after death. Probably nothing good, I can imagine. So if you find yourself thinking those kinds of dualistic thoughts about somebody else, or you're around people who are thinking those kinds of dualistic thoughts about somebody else, be really careful. Grab your own thoughts and turn them around. Every mind and my mind are one mind. Every life and my life are one life. And like I said, if there's people around you that are really caught up in that, get away. Because nothing good's going to happen. Just absolutely nothing good is going to happen. We're talking about the Diamond Sutra today, but the Heart Sutra, Daehaeng's version of the Heart Sutra, the second or third line is, in my translation, is inherently every being shares the same life, the same mind, the same body, works together as one, and freely gives and receives whatever is needed. They ceaselessly manifest and change, but because they don't know this, they don't know all this, they walk the path of suffering, right? Because they don't know that we share the same life, because they don't know that we are functioning together as one, because they don't know that we are continuously changing, they step into suffering. So, in ordinary life, we don't see any harm from these thoughts of, oh, I did, I am. Oh, he did this to me, she gave this to me. I'm giving this, I gave this to him. We don't see any harm from that. But if that kind of thinking grows and grows and grows and grows, you're ultimately, you wind up getting really close to this idea, oh, they're worth less than I am. Their lives don't matter to my life. And because we live in one whole, what happens to them is going to affect me. And it's not going to be good. So be really careful. Because the world, as Daehaeng said, because the world responds according to your presence, if you change your thinking, you can change your thinking. And to the extent that you change it, you're also a positive influence on the people around you. It may not be enough to change them, right? It may be trying to steer the Titanic where it just can't move fast enough. But it does have an effect. And your time isn't wasted. So I'll go ahead and stop here, and we'll start the small group discussion now. All right, thank you very much.